I'm in an interrogation center.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are.
Okay.
I am. Yeah, that's what this is. This is an intervention.
Great.
Have a seat.
I've been
goodness.
framed for murder. Hi, Charlotte.
No, hi. Okay, wait. So the lighting looks okay, right? It looks fine. I have a total. Look at. I have like a full.
Is that the ring light? Ooh,
Oh wow,
called it.
Oh yeah.
that's professional as hell.
But it
That's
has all these different
Someone
settings.
who does a lot of Zooms.
But don't let that fool you. I'm wearing sweatpants on the bottom.
same.
So,
Same.
so don't let that fool
Look
you.
at that sweatpant party.
Love it. All right. Can you hear me okay? I have this huge microphone that I'm using. But I don't know if I want it in the shot because I think it's a little phallic. But
Hey, I mean,
Right, 'cause-
we're all like very actively.
okay. As long as you can hear me, right? That's all that we care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Is
can
that
hear
okay?
you.
Okay.
We can fix it in post.
Oh, okay, cool. I know. I
No.
keep forgetting that you guys are going to be editing this. So
Yeah, and I think actually, as of yesterday, we announced that we're going to be releasing video versions of our podcasts as well through Patreon. So you might be the inaugural video.
Oh, perfect. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad I look good then. I'm glad
Of course.
I'm glad I like covered up some under eye things and whatnot. I had to for you guys. I had to. I'm like, I had to for this crew, you know?
We appreciate you for
Well,
joining.
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
for having me. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm
Of
excited.
course. Is this
Question before
Yeah.
before we like get all the way going, is her volume low for anyone else, or is that just me?
it's
Want me
low,
to
but
talk?
it's not.
Like I can still hear
Yeah.
it.
No,
Okay.
it should be fine. It should be fine.
Okay, is that better? Is that a little higher? No.
Like marginally.
Okay, wait, let's see. How about now? Wait, how about now? We'll make it. How about now? Is that better? If we do it like
Basically
one
sounds the
time.
same.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's
That's
using
okay.
your AirPods. It might be using the AirPod thing, or not
Your
AirPod,
headphones.
The headphones? No, I have it
know.
on.
Oh yeah, you might have dueling
Oh, is that what's happening?
input output.
Let's see. I can
How do
see
you even-
actually right here.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you look at the
Yeah, it says input is. Oh no! It says your input is ID4.
Yeah, that's the mic.
Yeah,
Huh.
interesting.
Huh. Well, tell me if you want me to do. I mean, I think it's probably better with the mic, right? Or do you want me to do no mic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like in post production, I can raise the volume of it as long as we can hear you a little bit. Now it's fine.
Right. I'm just gonna
Brad's
crank you up
like,
a little
I can kind of hear you. Okay. I can kind of hear you.
We gonna make it work.
All right,
this
I'll
is-
pull this closer to see if maybe that is it, though. Maybe I'm just not close enough. Okay.
Let's roll with
Let's
it.
just
All right.
Yeah,
roll.
it's good. We're good.
All right.
Charlotte,
And
welcome.
nothing is off limits, by the way. I did not say that in the email, but
You said
pretty much
nothing is off limits.
Yeah, pretty much nothing. I mean, let's just not, we don't want to talk too much about anything internal about ESPN that,
Yeah.
no, like,
Oh,
so we're not
yeah,
going to,
Right.
we're not going to talk like Sage Steel, but with me.
Oh, that was our first question. Okay.
Yeah,
Scratch
I
that.
guess that gets rid of
Right.
a
Thanks
whole
for joining
line
us,
of
Charlotte. That
questioning.
Yeah.
was that was
It's
fun.
been real. Yeah.
Yep.
See you later.
This is I'm just now realizing this is actually the first time that that we've spoken before. Have any of you guys spoken together before?
Well, so Brad and I have played golf together.
Oh,
And yeah, we've played golf together. I think it was probably, July.
summer.
Yeah, June, July. And
Yeah.
but I think this is the first time I'm speaking to Drew and Connor.
yeah.
think so.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
for sure.
I know. This is exciting. I feel like we're long lost friends.
It's been a long
Indeed.
time. It's been a long time coming for sure.
Shared values for
Yeah.
a good while. How are you? What's like top of mind for you right now? How are you
Yeah.
approaching this conversation?
Well, let's see. I think for me, you caught me 2 weeks from the New York City Marathon. So I have to be honest, I'm pretty tunnel vision right now for the race. And, a huge part of why I'm doing the race is because of my mental health. Right. And so I think this conversation comes at a great time for me, just to kind of talk about those motions of, why I'm pushing myself to do something pretty crazy, like run 26.2 miles when I'm not a runner. Well, now I am. Now I'm definitely a runner, but was not a runner before. And, I just finished covering the ESPNW summit and worked with some amazing athletes telling their stories, a lot of Olympians, Paralympians. So that's super top of mind for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I ran 16 miles yesterday, so if I'm a little tired, that's it. But I did have some coffee before this, so I was ready to go for you guys.
Is that the longest distance you have run before, 16?
Yeah, 16 is the longest for me. So that was kind of crazy, right? And 16, it felt like, the first 3 for me are always the hardest. I think that is just the total mental block for me, right? The first mile, I'm like, why, when is my thing going to say mile 1 over? Why is this taking so long? And then mile 2, same thing. Mile 3, I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? Once I get past that, then I hit like autopilot. And for me, that's the ideal situation, right? But yesterday it was like hotter than I expected. I'm super blessed. I run by the ocean. Doesn't really get much better than that out in Ventura. But, it was like, the autopilot moment is what I strive for. Just kind of having nothing going on in between my ears. I think a lot of people think, with running, like, oh, you have so much time to think about things. For me, if I'm thinking about things or working through scenarios in my mind, it's not going to be a great run. These are like 16-mile runs, or you just are doing it, right? Like I'm doing this so that I can just shut out everything and just focus on putting one foot in front of the other. Like that's kind of my goal here, is just to realize like what I'm capable of and the fact that everything I have is already in me, to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the biggest learning lesson for me in this marathon journey, which has only been 2.5 months. I've only been training for 2.5 months, but it's been pretty much, you have it in you. It's just about proving to yourself and showing to yourself, like, you're capable, girl. Yeah. Like, girl, you can do this. you know what you're doing. You just have to do it,
So what gets you, I guess, without, you said that there's like nothing going on when you're in the zone and when you're running. Is there another way that you can sort of characterize the feeling of that experience?
So for me, I always like to think of it like, if I'm paying attention to the songs that I have in my headphones, then I'm not on autopilot. If I'm like actually listening to the words and realizing what song I just heard, then I'm not on autopilot. It's when I'm totally just like, it's euphoric, right? You're just going. You're just going, and it just sounds like it's just like there's just noise in the background, right? Kind of thing. And I think that's something that I strive, because I always have so much going on in my head. It's nonstop chatter, right? And it's nonstop chatter between my own self-talk and then Slacks and emails and text messages and Instagram DMs and family and friends and dating. It's like all these things constantly going on. And I'm so type A, obviously. That's coming through a little bit. But, for me, it's just about kind of having that quiet, like that complete quiet. So almost like a meditation, right? I think perhaps that's the best way to describe it. Yeah. And I've never been one to fully meditate more than 5 minutes. Maybe do those headspace meditations, do a meditation here and there in a yoga class. But I think that's kind of what it is. That's the goal, is to have like a complete meditative moment. If that's even a thing, right?
I believe the term I'm familiar with is runner's high.
Yes.
Is what you're describing.
Thank you. That is exactly it. I know. I wasn't sure if that was okay to say, runner's high, but yeah.
There is nothing off limits.
But I think that's it, right? So you're right, Brad. That's exactly what I guess I'm explaining, right? Is that runner's high.
So you've been training for 2 months, but how far into the training did you tap into that runner's high? Like how long?
Yeah.
How many miles did you clock or log before like you were like, this is no longer painful. I'm just present and gliding through the rest of my run.
So look, it's still painful, right? Like I think it's still painful.
That's fair.
The 16 miles yesterday, I felt like I said, first 3 miles for me are always that's like chatter in my head. Those first 3 miles, I'm like, okay, shut it down. Like we're done. Like no more thinking about what just happened on the car ride over here. No more thinking about what you have to do when you get home. No more thinking about, oh, you forgot to text so-and-so back or whatever it may be. Like those first 3 miles, it's like, fine, get it all out, but we're done. We're shutting it down. And so yesterday, maybe between mile 3 and mile 12, that's when I had a good runner's high. And then I hit mile 12 and I was honestly super dehydrated. I didn't have enough water out there. And the moment I thought about that, even though I just had a few miles left, I was like, that's all I could think about. And then, you start to get a little panicky and you're like, wait, oh my God, I need water. No. So, but that's why you train, right? You train for those reasons. So I guess yesterday, maybe 9 miles, I had that runner's high. That's pretty good for me. But I don't think I fully achieved that until I ran my first half marathon, which was probably now a month ago. So I had to run 13 miles for a long run and decided to sign up for a Santa Monica half marathon. And it was just a super small one. And honestly, the people that were running it were like really good runners. They're just like the people that do it every weekend. And I'm an athlete, right? I always have been. That doesn't leave you just because you're not on a team sport anymore, just because you're not playing for a school or you're not professional or whatever it may be. I have an athlete's mentality. So once I got in that space, then I just wanted to keep up with everyone. Right. And that was it. It was just like I said, put one foot in front of the other. And I think that's when, Brad, I finally felt like, I get this now. Okay. That felt really good. That felt really, really good. Cause it was hard before when you just are doing these training runs. And, I've been super lucky. My mom has been training with me, or at least running some of the miles with me, and kind of joining me on these longer runs, at least like joining me for the, start and finish. And that's great. But once I start running, I'm by myself. Right. And so
the ultimate moral support.
Isn't that great? That. I know. Yeah, she's my rock for sure during all of this.
That's incredible.
When you you venture out to run, you're by yourself. Yes. But you talked about, not playing for team, not playing for school, not playing for score. So 2 questions. At the half, were you like, did you have a time in mind, or did you have a place in mind? And Connor, Drew, and I talk often about how we rarely keep score anymore as golfers, former
professional.
Yeah, professional. I love to say professional.
I'm retired.
I'm competitive.
I'm retired. Yep.
Professional amateurs.
Former competitive golfers that don't keep score anymore. Is there any reciprocity crossover there? Like,
yes,
you're not keeping score. You're not looking for placement or time.
Right.
Do you do those things?
Well, look, I'm like you guys. I hate to keep score when I'm on the golf course. I think it's actually like the worst thing for my mental game. And look, we all know how to add. Like we know what our score is. Like we're not like we know what the score is.
That's why I'm not keeping score.
And then right, exactly. And honestly, a guesstimate is usually great. But I went into this marathon training with the notion of, I just want to finish, right? I just want to cross the finish line. I want to stick with the training. I want a routine, right? That's really why I kind of got started. I mean, there's a few different layers for why I'm doing this marathon, but one of them was I was in a super bad depression this summer, couldn't seem to really get out of this place of, and look, I think a lot of us were kind of in a darker place after being in this pandemic for so long and going through the motions. And I finally felt like I was in a much better space. And then it just kind of hit me like it does, right? This depression kind of comes out of left field. It hits me. I feel like, okay, I need something to get me back to a place of routine and feeling motivated to do something. I felt like I was just kind of stuck with work, stuck with everything, not really happy with any aspect of my life. And and that sounds pretty dramatic, but I think that's kind of where I was. And the opportunity to run the New York City Marathon came about because I've written about the New York City Marathon for the last 5 years for ESPN. And I have a close relationship with the New York Roadrunners, the people who put on the race. And they said, if you want to run it, we were in a brainstorm meeting about what stories we're going to tell. If you want to run it, you're in.
Wow.
And 2 years ago, it's so amazing, right? And like, who gets that opportunity to just be like, do you want to run this marathon major? And I had to think about it, but I kind of already knew I wanted to do it. I knew this last year. I knew it after I wrote my feature story on the last place finishers of the New York City Marathon. So literally the people that finished last. And I just saw the strength and the mental toughness that they have. And I don't necessarily love the term mental toughness, but I think in this regard, it really is the perfect term. So I just saw what these people put their bodies through, but more importantly, what they put their minds through. And they did anything to finish this race and cross the finish line. It didn't matter if there's only 100 people cheering them on at the end or 50 people cheering them on. Didn't matter that they shut down the city and now the city was back open again, and they're running on the sidewalk, not the streets like the other runners before them. So for me, I kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to do this, but I think this summer it really came to a head. So for me, it's just about finishing the race and not really so much about the time. But the athlete in me is, I know my time. I know I have the, my training app tells me what pace I'm at. After I did the half marathon, I did it way faster than I thought I would. And so my training app updated and it was like, well, now your pace is, 1 minute less than it was before. And like, now you're going to stick to that pace. And this last weekend for my long run, I had a great pace. And so it's kind of making me think, oh my gosh, maybe you're faster than you thought you were, which is great.
There you go. Yeah.
But I still, for me, I think I'll probably finish in 5 hours. We'll see. I'm less worried about the timing necessarily. But a part of me too, I kind of like the idea of people like being like, wow, you did that in great time. I mean, who doesn't like that, right? Like I think I want to shock myself there a little bit, but so yes and no, right? That's kind of a long-winded answer to say, I don't care about my time, but I definitely know what my time is, just like my golf score. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you said, though, I mean, like just finishing alone, especially after only embarking on this journey 2 months ago, is such an incredible challenge and a test of your will and determination. So that's really phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I think running a marathon are one of the only things that mental toughness can really apply.
Right. I do too. Right. Because that is such a term that's like full of stigmas, right? It's like, we don't always have to be tough, but when you're running 26.2 miles or even 16 or 10 or 13, whatever, even
there's
3,
no dodging. Like that's toughness.
Yeah.
That's toughness.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
You described your period of depression this summer, and running as like a means of helping you get up every day and like accomplishing something. Can you share a little bit? Are you comfortable sharing a little bit about like that transition and maybe like what the first experience running felt like for you mentally and physically, I guess, as well?
Yeah. So, for me, I've dealt with depression, episodic depression for many, many years. And part of the reason why I returned home to LA, I know Brad knows a little bit about this story, but I returned home to LA at the beginning of the pandemic, like 3 months into the pandemic, because I fell into another deep depression. But again, like so many of us, right? We were stuck in our houses and, it was hard. And I was in a 1-bedroom apartment in central Connecticut, right? So I didn't have my family around. I didn't have, my friends. We were all kind of isolating and like everyone else. And so for me, I think I thought I was in such a better place because I'd been so happy being at home in LA. And, I felt like my depressive episodes weren't happening as frequently as they were when I was in Connecticut. Right. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in this great place. I'm really like, wow, this is what it feels like to not be depressed. Like, this is so nice, And then this summer, it just kind of hit me. And, those feelings of not wanting to get out of bed or not feeling anything towards whatever, it is. I mean, your passions, what drives you. I didn't feel like I had a driving force. I wasn't really sure if I was on the right path. I was kind of, I think, being super critical about living at home again as a grown adult, and just that self-talk was bad, right? But really just not wanting to kind of get out of bed. And I do work East Coast hours, so I don't really have a choice, right? Like it's 6:30 and I'm logging on. And I think that also adds to it because I got to be on right away. I don't really have that time. So I think for me, starting the marathon training, the first time that I just needed to go for a run. And again, I'm super grateful. I have my mom here who's like, okay. And mind you, backstory, she was a personal trainer when I was growing up. So she has that in her. She loves to do that. But she was great because there was one night I just was in a mood and mine like depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, right? So if I know my anxiety is super high, I know probably a depressive episode is going to follow. And that's just how it is for me. And I just was in this really agitated state and nothing was going right? Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I just couldn't get a hold of my emotions and I was just feeling agitated. And then I was feeling mad at myself because I hadn't started my marathon training yet. And I had agreed to do this and what is going on? Again, just that negative self-talk. And so the first time my mom, it was like a Wednesday night and she's like, you need to just go run 3 miles. Like just go put on your clothes and go run. And that's all it took. I mean, really, and it's kind of silly to say that's all it took because the lead up to that was kind of crazy, but that's really all it took. It was just like, just go right. Put on your running shorts, go grab your headphones and go run down the street and then keep running for a little bit and then come back and like see how and then I felt so much better. It felt like a weight had been lifted, right? So maybe it was at that time when I did feel that like runner's high almost, but it did feel like a weight was lifted. And I think that's what I'm feeling every single time I run. A weight is being lifted from me. And it's almost like the weight of the pressures that I put on myself and the negative self-talk and all of those things just kind of evaporate, and once I'm done, I feel like I've been successful at something. And I think that's really powerful, no matter if it was a great run or not. And I've had really bad training runs and I get really upset with myself. And then I have to remind myself, like, you did it though. You did it. Yeah. You walked a little bit more than you wanted to, but you finished. And that was your goal all along, just to finish and do something.
Right. I imagine, I hadn't really thought about this when I asked, but I imagine that posed a fairly significant risk to your mental health of setting this goal to do this thing. And if you hadn't gone out there and done that first run or the second run or the third run or every single one that's come after that's a risk to be like, I failed. And that induces more negative self-talk, right? So absolutely. That's a lofty goal to have set for yourself.
It is. And I think part of why I, was ready to take on this challenge is because I had been thinking about doing this race for a little over a year, maybe even 2 years, like I said. And I did want to do it last year, but it was a virtual race. And I thought, okay, that's too much for me. I don't want to do a virtual race, my first marathon. But really the whole backstory, which I am thinking I might write about, we don't know. I'm going to kind of see how I feel post run is, I experienced a traumatic incident in college and I wanted to kind of show myself 10 years removed from that situation. Look how far you've come. And so that's kind of when I look at the arc of why I'm doing this, that's what motivates me, right? Like you are such a different woman today than you were 10 years ago. And you hold so much more power than you realize. No one can take that power away from you. So that's for me, that's the arc that brings me back to, okay, this is why you're doing it. And wow. Yeah, you put a lot of pressure on yourself and all of that, but like, look at the woman you are today and look at everything you've been able to achieve despite what has happened to you. And I think there's so much power in just that knowledge of that. And whether or not, people know my story or they don't, that's okay. I know my story and I know how far I've come. And I think it's important to remind yourself of how far you've come. So that's kind of part of it too. Like I'm not letting myself down at all, because just me doing those first few runs, that was already successful for enough for me, you know, just to sign up, just to speak it into existence. Right. I'm like, I think once you tell people too, that's why people might find me annoying on Instagram that I talk about this run all the time in the marathon. But once I speak it into existence, it's like, it's out there. You can't take that back now, you know,
as well.
It does.
It
does. Totally does. Because now everyone on November 7th, they're going to be like, okay, is she there?
Right.
Is she doing it? Is this real?
I see no IG stories.
We're huge believers of speaking things into existence on group golf therapy. So yeah, we got you.
Good. I love that. I love that I'm not alone in that speaking into existence for all aspects of life, not just running. I promise.
Yes.
Not just running.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the espnW summit? What was that experience like? You held kind of a big title at this event.
Yes. Thank you so much for asking, because I feel like I'm still processing it myself, but it was the first time that I was able to go to the espnW summit. And look, it was a pretty intimate experience because of the pandemic. There weren't as many people there in attendance, but it was really just amazing to be in a room. Well, we were actually outside. We were outside at Torrey Pines. We were in this beautiful location, but to be with some of the biggest, game changers in the industry, to be with agents, to be with owners, executives, just people, women who are really changing the way that we look at sports, changing the way that we consume sports, changing the way that we play sports. I mean, I think that was huge. I got to meet the new LPGA commissioner, something that I've been wanting to do, and just have a chat with her, Molly. And, that was so big. And I think for me, it was just a moment of reflection, right? When I ended it, I thought, oh, wow, I've been working at ESPN for 6 years, and now I get to be at this summit. And I wrote, I think it was 5 or 4 stories that were summit related, all connected to Team Toyota athletes. Team Toyota is a sponsor of ours. And so we work hand in hand with them on delivering some content. They don't have any editorial control over it, but we work with them on content. And, I think for me, it just was one of those moments, another moment. And perhaps that was selfish of me to kind of take away from this huge event. But I thought, wow, I got to be there and be viewed as, someone in the industry, just like the rest of them. People knew, like, to have women from the NBA Players Association come up to me and go, oh, I've read your stuff. Like, I know your name, Charlotte. Like, that's so cool. And I think sometimes when you're in the moment, you can forget that what you're doing is impactful and what you're doing is memorable. Maybe I'm not telling the biggest stories every single day, but the stories that I tell, I believe, really do matter. And I think if you look back at golf in particular at ESPN and women's golf, a few years ago, there wasn't really a presence. And now there is a presence of women's golf at ESPN. Is it small still? Yes, absolutely. But is there a presence? Yes, there's a presence. Is there a presence of, essays that we're telling, the Madeline Sagstrom essay, Mariah Stackhouse, Tanika Sandiford, we're telling really amazing, powerful stories that are coming from women in sports. And I think that's just a goal of mine, to amplify and elevate women's voices. And so that was, for me, the moment at the summit where I was like, wow, okay, I'm here. Like, I deserve to be here, just like these women,
and
that was cool.
And like you said as well, like, it's not, maybe those stories right now in this current moment aren't getting as many clicks as the Falcons Patriots game score, highlights, recap, right? But they're important, and it's incredibly important that an institution, a legacy institution like ESPN, is backing you and backing those types of stories into existence, because they're important. And we've talked a lot about how representation matters, both, in the economic side of things in professional sports, but in media and in storytelling. And to have a story like Mariah Stackhouse's featured on ESPN.com is remarkable, because 5-10 years ago, it probably wouldn't be, right?
Right.
So congratulations for continuing to fight that fight internally.
Thank you. And look, it's not easy, right? Like your pulse on that is totally accurate. It's not easy to say, hey, not just one Mariah Stackhouse story, but we've done a few now. And, Mariah is a easier sell there because Mariah is such a, she's a big name, but like a Tanika Sandiford story, that was a harder sell, right?
Yeah.
And that was a harder sell just because it's like, who? What? And I think that's the thing, right? You have to, I'm not so much convincing my bosses because we're storytellers. We want to tell the best stories, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're in the business of. So bring us a good story and let's tell it. And, you just have to have the right pitch to them, which that's why, I went to school for that, right? So I learned to do that. But you have to have the right pitch. But it's about convincing I'm going to say man, because more than likely it's a man who goes to ESPN.com to read about Tom Brady, convincing him to click on the Mariah Stackhouse story, convincing him to click on the Madeline Sagstrom story. Okay, is he going to click on those stories? Maybe, maybe not. But that's where it's also about convincing my colleagues to have it high up on the page, to send out a tweet, to send out an ESPN alert. And I've been super grateful that every single one of those stories, we've gotten an ESPN alert sent out. So, people are getting that on their phones and they're seeing it, and then they're more likely to click on it. And I think that's huge. But not only that, when we first told the Tanika story and the Mariah story, both of those actually, they got huge traction. And it was cool to see Golf Digest and golf.com, do pull quotes of my Mariah story.
Yeah.
Like that's, for me, I'm like, that's it. Like that's exactly it. They're in the business of, that's it. Like golf is their thing. And we had that first, the Tanika story that blew up. Everyone wanted a piece of that afterwards. And,
they were like, who leaked this story?
Yeah, right.
Wait, Scoop, we didn't have it first.
Yeah.
We didn't.
And it's like, well, and that's the thing, right? It's just like, open your eyes there, right? Yeah. All of that was just because I was watching the U.S. Women's Open and I thought, wait, who is Amy Olsen's caddy?
Yes.
And you hear a little glimpse from the analysts of her story. And then you go, oh, I kind of want to know more about that. So let me find out. And for me,
and it hasn't been told by golf.com or Golf Digest yet.
And so let me tell it. And then, Golf Channel, I love, my favorite thing is like, because I try to give credit where credit is due always, right? So if I read something first or I hear something, like I love to say, I read this in the Washington Post, the New York Times, whatever. And I feel like with that story, it was just like forgotten that ESPN,
no citations
we told
necessary.
it first. And it's like, well, you know what? That's okay. Because I knew it, but that's all right. We all knew it. And Tanika knows it.
So did we.
And you guys knew it. So it's good. But, that's why also for me, I think those as told to essays, I choose that format for those particular stories because I believe that you want to elevate and amplify the voices of the subject. It's not about me. And I know that I am a white woman telling stories of women that I don't know. I haven't lived their experiences, right? And so I want them to be in the driver's seat. And I'm essentially acting as a ghostwriter, or as I like to say, I'm kind of just putting together the puzzle pieces. We have just a really fruitful conversation for an hour, 2 hours, and then I just kind of put together the puzzle pieces. But that's why I choose that format. It's not because I'm not capable of writing long feature stories. It's because I want their voices to shine, not mine.
Yeah, it's less of a like refraction through your experience and more authentic to their voices. And so I would certainly urge anyone listening to go read those stories because they're powerful and they're in depth and significant. And I think, in a lot of cases, new, groundbreaking. So very cool.
Thank you.
We'll link those in the show notes for today's episode.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's huge. And look, it's not just in golf too. We told the Molly Seidel story before anyone told that story. And we told that last year, and Molly was super vulnerable and raw and real. And then she went on to go win a bronze in Tokyo this summer in her first
Mhm.
Olympic marathon appearance. And, for mental health, that one, I suggest anyone who wants to kind of learn a little bit more about what she's been through. That's it. And look, those are struggles. Like, you guys know, you do a podcast about it. To have people open up about some of their deepest, darkest moments, that's a challenge, right? And that's where you just have to lead with empathy. Empathy is your best friend in those moments.
100%. And so in May, you led ESPN's coverage of Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
I did. Yes. Yeah. In May, which feels like forever ago. That feels like forever ago. Yeah.
Truly does. What did that, I mean, you shared a bit obviously earlier about your own experience with your own mental health journey. What did that opportunity mean to you to really carry the torch for ESPN, again, for such a massive worldwide sports publication, to lead that initiative?
So for me, it meant everything. It really just was like a huge honor, but I think it was also the result of being so open and vulnerable with my own mental health struggles. And I think, that didn't happen overnight. That happened with a lot of like trust and just relationships among my colleagues and my higher ups. And then also just showing through my storytelling, like, I'm very capable of telling these stories, and I think we should tell more of these stories. And in the pandemic, I think it was so important to tell stories about mental health. It still is. Obviously, we're still in this pandemic. It's still top of mind for us. And so, it was such a huge honor when I was asked to kind of lead that charge there. And then I thought it was a huge honor, but it was a lot, right? It was a lot to kind of process and take in. And for me, I didn't want to tell the same mental health stories in sports that we've heard and seen before. Yeah. I am so grateful for some of the athletes who are constantly talking about mental health. I'm so grateful for them, but they're not the only ones going through mental health struggles. They're not the only ones who have experienced depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar. The list goes on and on and on. They're not the only ones, but media and mainstream media makes it feel like they're the only ones at times. Yeah. And I think when you kind of look at maybe not the top athletes, but you go, there are so many athletes underneath them who maybe aren't household names, who have these just as powerful and impactful stories. And so that's what I really wanted to look at. And I think, my colleagues did some amazing work on the Drew Robinson story. And so that really set the stage for the story that we wanted to tell, because Drew Robinson necessarily wasn't one of those household names that you knew before, right? He wasn't a household name in MLB necessarily, but his vulnerability to tell his story of attempted suicide was something that, Jeff Passan and just the E60 crew really told in such an incredible and beautiful way, and the trust that they had with Drew to tell that story. And so that set the precedent for me, right? I wanted Drew's story because we had already told his story months before, but then we were retelling a new side of his story once he, got onto a minor league team again and was starting to play baseball. So we were revisiting his story, and I wanted that to really kind of set the tone for what mental health coverage would look like for us. And his thing is all about ending the stigma. And so I thought that was perfect as well. I think we want to end the stigma. We don't want to just break down the stigma. We want to make sure that we're ending it, and that, people aren't using the language, which I hear far too often, and I'm sure you guys hear far too often, mental health illness or mental illness or sickness. And every time problems. I hear mental problems and even mental health struggles can seem off sometimes, but mental illness, that to me, I'm like, whoa, I try to shut that down anytime I hear that. That's just so not it. Yeah. And, I think you want the subject to really explain what it is they're experiencing, right? So if that's how someone's going to explain what they're experiencing, by all means, let them, if that's how they feel about it. But that's kind of what I wanted the tone to be for that month. And I wanted it to really explore the notion of just all the layers to mental health. So Catherine Nye, who's an Olympic weightlifter, she won silver in Tokyo, but this was obviously a few months before Tokyo. She opened up about her bipolar 2 diagnosis. And I think that was really an important story to tell because, again, mainstream media and just myself included, we can get really stuck on mental health being depression and anxiety, and that's about it.
Totally.
And I think that can be really detrimental to other people opening up about what they're experiencing when the emphasis is on those things. And I'm guilty of that myself, right? I experience depression and anxiety and OCD. I experience those main three that are talked about so often. But, I really wanted to allow Catherine to talk about her bipolar 2 diagnosis, to talk about how she went off her medicine during the pandemic. She wanted to know what it felt like. Those are moments that are so real and so important, right? And we don't really get to hear that a lot because I think, again, there's the stigma surrounding it. And so when I'm telling those stories or leading the charge for this, I think it was just as important for me to be honest about my journey with mental health.
Yeah.
More than anything. I was able to host a conversation with Drew Robinson, and, we did a pre-conversation, and I expressed to him kind of what I had gone through and what I was going through. And, you don't do it in a way because you're looking for sympathy. You do it in a way so that they understand you're empathetic to their story.
There's a shared language. And relative shared experience. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So that meant everything to me, but I think the real work happened after May, right? It's not just on me and my shoulders to keep telling these stories. It's on all of my colleagues and all journalists, right? All storytellers to not just turn a blind eye or not just go, okay, Simone Biles talked about this again. Got to get on Simone Biles. Well, let's look at the other athletes too, who maybe don't have the platform that Simone has. Let's look at them and see what they're willing to share about their journey, because they have way less support, I'm imagining, and they might not feel heard or seen at all. So let's kind of go beyond those Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles. And again, I'm so grateful for those big names speaking out on these issues. And same with golf. I think with golf, it's such a mental game. And I'm so glad that we're now talking about these conversations in the golf world. But I think the four of us here can attest to, we've been focused on mental health in the golf world for a long time. And
before it was cool.
Before it was cool. Yeah. We were depressed before it was a cool thing. Okay, people, that was
Same.
I was crying on the golf course before it was cool. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So,
right. I was calling my mom from the third tee box before.
I was going to see Zen Golf. I was sent in high school. I was sent to go see Dr. Perrin, the Zen Golf creator.
What?
Yeah.
What? That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I think, I'll be honest, I think I was like 15, 16 years old. And so at that point, and you have to remember that's 2008, 7, we're not really even talking about mental health at that point, right? So we're not really talking about any of those things. And we're just thinking like, oh, this girl's kind of a nutcase when she's on the course. Like she just, look at her. She doesn't, she just falls apart at the end and what's going on? And it's like, I don't know, I'm a teenage girl.
Right.
Like,
I don't know, life.
Like, I don't know. I wear my golf skirt and my retainer to school every day. I don't know. What do you want from me, people? Like,
honestly, same.
Right.
We need the tea from that conversation. So like what are some things that rise to the top for you?
So for me, the thing that always has stuck out, and still to this day, if I do it, I feel like I'm in a much better place. But your pre-shot routine, that was huge. And look,
that's like chapter 1 in the book.
That is chapter 1. That is, I didn't even need to go to that lesson. Okay. I could have just opened up the book for that one. But I think for life in general, and this could be just the total hippie writer in me, but golf for me has always been reflective of life, right? And so many different levels. And I always view it that way. And that's why I love the game so much. And I think routine is so important to me. And pre-shot routine is so important to my golf game. And we kind of mastered what my pre-shot routine would look like. And it's stepping behind the ball, and it's taking a swing, a practice swing, and it's looking and envisioning your shot and doing all those things and not taking so much time. I mean, this is not a long pre-shot routine. We're not trying to annoy your competitors and your playing partners, but it's just kind of the stepping behind the ball and taking a deep breath, if anything. And there are times when I don't do that and I hit the ball fine, definitely. But there are other times when I 100% need to take that moment, to take that breath, to take that step behind the ball. And so I think that stuck out. I don't know. I could probably ask my mom. She remembers more than I do, I bet. But, it was one of those things that was like, what's going on with her game? She is one of the best hitters out there and she has all this potential, but something happens in tournaments and she gets really nervous and anxious, but we didn't use that word. Like, we did not use that word.
Or it was used to like punch down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, she's just like nervous Nelly out there. She just
Right. That was where I was going. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
No, that's called anxiety.
Yeah.
That actually didn't exist in 2008, so that was recently invented, I think.
Yeah, anxiety was created in the lab in 2009, actually.
It really was.
So how much of that stuff do you carry over now, even not playing competitively? Obviously, you played at UC Santa Cruz at a high level. Now, what would you say the mindset is approaching a round of golf, just like on a casual given day with some friends?
Well, look, first and foremost, I want to say I had to take a break from the game after college. I took a serious break from the game. And I think for me, a storyline that I will stick to and say more often than not is, I think when you are going through depressive episodes, your hobbies and passions kind of dissipate. And when I was in Connecticut, starting off my career, first of all, I was very low level at ESPN. I was not making that much money. And the last thing I was doing was going out and playing golf. I also didn't have a golf community around me. So I think that made it really difficult. And I was struggling just in so many aspects of my life, right? So I did turn away from golf for a little bit. I needed that break. But I also just think in general, people forget, like, when you're kind of feeling sad or off, they're like, go do something that you enjoy. Well, if you're in that state, those things sometimes aren't.
Yeah, it's not that
simple.
simple.
Not that simple, right? And so I had to take a break from golf for a while. And I had to also realize that I was no longer in that competitive space of golf. And so it's okay when I go out with, it was, the men that I worked with, right? Which was also hard. I didn't have any women that I knew that I was playing with. And I've always, played with guys, and that's just kind of the nature of it. Now there are so many more women that play the sport at all different levels. But even when I started when I was 13, it was still predominantly men and boys, like I was playing with a lot of like middle school, high school boys. And that's who was at the range. If I showed up at the range today, I'm sure it would be a lot more women, a lot more girls there than when I was growing up. But, I think I struggled with going out with the guys that I worked with and seeing them drink and smoke and listen to music. And I struggled with that, right? Because I wasn't used to that atmosphere and that environment. And I didn't necessarily allow myself to just go with the flow, which that's a hard thing for me in general in life. I love control. I love to control a situation. That's my Achilles heel, right? When you guys sent me over those pre-list questions, I'm like, yep, that's it. Control freak. That's
easy. Layup.
That's it. But, when you said I'm
smoothest transition we've ever had on the show.
Yeah.
That was what's happened.
Yeah, perfect. But, for me, I just needed to be like, this is a sport that you once loved, because at that point I didn't love it, right? In my kind of early mid-20s. I'm like, you once loved this sport. And then it was really returning back home to LA at the beginning of the pandemic. It's like, you are back home in Southern California. You have the best public courses all around you, because I never grew up at a country club. I grew up in a single parent household. We, didn't have the money to belong to a country club. That just wasn't why we got into the sport, or why I got into the sport. So, I grew up on public courses, and we have some of the best of them out in Southern California. So I thought, you're back home, and if you're not taking advantage of the fact that you live 5 minutes from the course you grew up on, and you're not playing with some of the best, there's like Brad is one of them, right? We connected on social media. Obviously, all of us connected on social media, but Brad's out here in LA, and, just realizing like there are some amazing people in the golf community that are also like you, right? Who played competitively, or who kind of just have all of these like life experiences that are similar to yours, or at least are willing to hear you out. But we just want to have fun on the course, and we want to have a good time, but they also do take the game seriously, because at the end of the day, I want to play good golf. I love to play good golf, right? And I know I'm capable of playing good golf. And I think that's a hard part too of being a woman in this sport who isn't at the professional level, and they're not at even the amateur level. You're just kind of at the fun level. I don't want to be a golf babe. And I get that asked that now more often than I thought I would. And it's like, I don't want to be a golf babe. That's not it for me. I want to look cute in golf outfits, and that's okay.
Sure.
I want to look good, but I don't want to be seen or viewed as just an image or a spectacle. And I hope that those women understand what their purpose is and understand the power they have in influencing more women to the game, because that's what's important for me. I want to bring more women into the sport. I want to bring more light into the sport, and I care less, despite what maybe my social media says or how people perceive my social media, right? I care less about the male gaze when it comes to my game, I know I hit the ball far. I know I'm good at golf. I know I am. I know I am, but I also know that.
I know it too.
Thank you. I was going to say,
First-hand witness.
And we do have a witness here. And I'm getting even better, right? This marathon training is actually helping my game. But no, I feel like it's just the lighter that it becomes, the more that I'm just like, you love this sport, and you love this sport because it's fun and it's freeing. And the driving range has become such a place of therapy for me to go there at night. And that's why, again, I'm so grateful. I have a course that's 5 minutes from my house, not even, 3 minutes at that. And it has a great driving range that's lit up at night. Shout out to Westlake Golf Course. And I can just go there and hit a large bucket of balls, put in my AirPods, and swing and feel safe. Number one, right? Yeah. There's always that creepy guy every once in a while, but feel safe and just hit some balls and let it all out. I mean, that's my new form of therapy right now. That's what I'm kind of embracing with golf.
I think we should get back to the golf babes thing in a second.
I know that's like a whole other podcast.
It's a vat of worms.
It is.
Might be episode 2.
A vat
of worms. But I'm curious, was there, so when you went back to LA and transitioned back into a healthy relationship with golf, was there a singular moment or day where you came home from playing golf and were like, I'm back in?
Well, look, Brad, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think when we went out with Danilo and Lou and we went out to Rustic Canyon, I think that was such a great time of, for people who really enjoy the sport on a serious level, but also just want to go out and have fun. And I thought it was such a great experience to show, like, look at these 4 people who really didn't know each other before that, right? Because I think we all just, I knew Danilo a little bit through social media, and we knew each other through social media. But I thought, what a beautiful moment to just capture a foursome out there, like playing at Rustic Canyon, one of the best public courses out here. And it was just enjoyable, right? And I think that was it for me. Because before that, it's hard. You can't just go out and play by yourself anymore. You're always going to be paired up with a group.
Yeah.
And I do still struggle with that. I think a lot of my kind of teenage, I don't want to say PTSD, but look, as a woman, it's not always enjoyable to be paired up with a group of men that you aren't familiar with. That is not always an enjoyable experience. And so, I have definitely brought along my mom, my sister when she's in town, just to have someone there with me. And so, that's why I was so grateful when Brad and Danilo and Lou and we had this group together, and it was a group of me and 3 men, but it was just a positive space. And it was a group of people who love the game and want to be better at the game, but who cares if, you hit a shot. But like, we also all know that, that kind of sucked a little bit, when you miss it. But there was some friendly, just friendly competition out there. And it was a great time. And I thought for me, that was like a really beautiful moment to see there's some great people in the sport in the LA area. And I thought that was, for me, that kind of helped me get back into it a little bit more. Because prior to that, I really was going out at random times and bringing along a friend who was not a golfer, just because, some days I don't really want to get paired with a random person. I'll admit it. Maybe I'm not the friendliest, but I think sometimes you just don't want to, right? You're a little scared. And especially as a woman, I think there is kind of a fear of who am I going to be paired with today? And when I was in high school, I used to get dropped off at the golf course and go find a group. And I was playing with older men all the time. And sometimes I just don't want to do that anymore. And I think that's okay too, right? It's okay to know, like, that's just not the vibe that I want today. So maybe that's just a driving range day, and that's okay.
Totally.
That's why we played. And you used the word PTSD, and I'm glad that you did, because that's a very valid and legitimate feeling. The closest I can relate is my experience in school as the only black one around. Like, PTSD is a very real thing, especially in golf. And thank you for sharing your experience with that. And also, I had no idea that our round of golf was that.
It was.
that
impactful. It
impactful.
really was. And
it was so much fun, though.
It was so much fun.
You said it well. Like, we all like-minded. We were there because we really enjoy the game. We enjoy playing well, but like mostly for the vibes. And they were plentiful on
Absolutely.
that day. It was gorgeous. Rustic is, like you said, one of the best public tracks in LA. And I think what I took from that day was like, because I mean, the reputation looms large when you pull up to the golf course with a blue check. Let me just tell you. But it was totally like, the instant we shook hands, it was like, oh no, we're in this together. Like, we F all the bullshit. Like, we're here for the vibes and to build and grow this community of like-minded golfers.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing, right? You come in with a level of, it's the perception, right? People see the Instagram account and they're just thinking one thing. And I hope that when, you met me, like you said, Brad, like the vibes were there and I just came off genuine. Right. And I was just excited to be there and to have this group. And, Danilo, who he's the Chainsmokers photographer. I mean, he also came in, like, I had never played with him either. He was just a friend of a friend at that point. So I was like, what? You always get nervous too, right? You kind of go back to those like kind of kid at a birthday party vibes. Like, is anyone going to talk to me? How is it going to be? Like, is this going to be cool? Are we all going to get along? Like, I don't know what's going to go on here. And the best part is that now I have a relationship with each one of you, individually and then as a group. But I think that was, for me, like I said, I think it was one of the best experiences I've had, especially in a non-competitive setting, for sure.
That's amazing.
Great job, Brad.
Wow.
Yeah. Good job, Brad.
Good one.
I'll send you that Venmo later. I'll send you that Venmo later.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really glad to know that experience was so like a defining moment. Because the three of us have spoken about our experiences with walking away from the sport and finding that spark again. Connor, I'm glad you asked that question. What was that thing that brought you back? And sometimes it is just like giving in to the unknown and being like, all right, I'm going to try this. And I tried it that day. You tried it that day. Dadillo tried it. Olu tried it. Like, and we learned something about one another. And that's the beautiful thing about golf. And
like,
I still, however, I won't avail myself for a random group like that much.
No,
like,
and I won't either.
The PTSD do be showing
100%. And like I said, with men, right? Like it can be tricky. And I'm a single woman too. Like I'm not, so I also don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, here she is, like trying to invite all these men. And then what's she going to do? What's happening here? I don't want to get like a reputation for that either. But, I also, on the flip side, like it's not that enjoyable for me anymore, right? Sometimes it can be, but anymore to go out with a group of men or women who are new to the game or who are more interested in just taking photographs and videos. That's not that enjoyable to me because I don't get out on the golf course that much. I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
I have a full life. And, I work really crazy hours because I'm working East Coast time. So like, yes, maybe I'm done by 3 p.m., but that does not mean that I'm ready to go play a full round of golf by 3 p.m. But, I think that's the other thing. Like, I definitely want to lift up people in this sport, but that does not mean that all of my free time has to go to playing with women or men who are new to the game and aren't that interested. So I think it's okay to be selective, right? Because of all those years that we didn't have the ability to be selective. We were just placed with people, or you're a girl, Charlotte, you're a cute girl. Go play with that other cute girl over there. You guys will have so much fun in your skirts.
I feel like you just described a lot of people in LA or want to be golf influencer.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy.
Oh,
yeah, I did, right?
People with no jobs that want to take pictures for the gram that are new to golf.
And look,
people try to get in the not to look book.
Exactly. And if that serves a purpose, a positive purpose, then fine, so be it. But what I always like to say is like, I have a job. I have a day job. Okay. And I have played this sport since I was 13. And for me, like I said, I think it's okay to be selective sometimes. And that does not mean that you are not being inclusive and amplifying people in the sport. And when you are allowed to say, my time is valuable too.
100%.
So I'm sorry that I don't want to just go out there to take photos today.
Boundaries.
And talk about self-care, like setting boundaries and prioritizing your personal space is like, that's paramount.
Yes.
And,
Absolutely.
and on the flip side of that too, like, and this is similar to your goal of running the marathon, like huge risk with regards to like playing with a new group of people, a random group of people, huge risk. If that doesn't pan out the way that you want it to, like both of y'all said, huge potential for, PTSD and like further harm, to be done.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, like the payoff can be outstanding, right? And I'm glad that you two had that experience together. That makes me really happy.
Let's run it back.
Yeah, we have to do it again. But that's it.
We almost did like 2 weeks ago.
And that's kind of the crazy part though, right? It's like we're busy. We have, a lot going on, and golf is a long sport, right? Like we're out there for 5 hours and we don't have like a 5-iron golf situation out here in LA yet, which I hope we do one day. Yet, because that would be so easy for Brad and I to go, hey, let's go grab a drink and swing some clubs, right? Like, and let's just whatever. But I think that's kind of the hard part. It's like, oh my gosh, we played months and months ago. And yeah, of course I want to play again. And, I've been lucky enough to play in a few charity tournaments lately and get invited out to those. And those have been really fun. And scrambles are always a good time. I got to play in Palm Springs when I went there for a wedding recently. Like, those are just kind of making time for the sport that I love. But it's hard to kind of schedule in those tee times, especially in LA. Tee times are hard to come by these days.
That's why you got to know people.
You got to know people. You got to know people, and you have to, I hope my bosses aren't listening to this part. You got to learn to navigate your time well during the week days.
Yes.
You know,
That's it.
You heard it
I'll
here.
leave it at that. Yeah.
So do we want to, I want to hear a little bit more. I want to hear you expound a little bit more on your mortal wound, your Achilles heel.
Sure.
Control, perfectionism. Was that sort of the lane you were going down?
Yeah. Control and perfectionism. And I think, look, when I say control freak, that makes it sound like I want to control everyone around me. And that's not necessarily it. I think it's just, I really struggle with when I'm in situations and I don't fully know what the outcome could be. I don't, I like to be prepared. I like to kind of have a full view of what I'm getting myself into. And I feel like a dating coach would have a field day with this. They're like, that's why you're single. You can't control it. But, it's like, I think I do struggle with that. I'm very independent. And so I think it's easy for me to be like, okay, well, this is what I can control today. And this is what I can do. And if something's out of my control, I think that's when I get pretty anxious, right? And so it's about reminding myself, like, you can't control everything. You definitely can't control others. And I'm getting a lot better at that. Obviously, I work for a big corporation where I deal with a lot of people on a regular basis, and I can't control what they're doing or saying or thinking. Like, I just can't, and that's okay, right? So yeah, control is one of them, which is also funny that I chose golf as my sport.
Right.
Yeah, like, okay. But I think that's probably why, right? I chose something that, like, there's an unpredictability, and I think I need to see the beauty in those unpredictable moments. But control, and then, just your classic, like, daddy issues, things like trust and, things like that. But just really, I think the control thing.
Honestly.
Yeah. And it just being type A, right. And understanding that just because you have certain standards for your life doesn't mean others have those same standards and, morals and values and ethics. And, just because you have that doesn't mean others do. And that's okay. And just, you can't control everything. So I try. And through therapy, that helped me a lot. Actual real therapy really helped me kind of let go of the feeling of control, let go of harboring emotions that were attached to controlled situations. And, I think it kind of goes hand in hand though with the trust thing. And just if you didn't feel like you had trust in your childhood, then, and support, then obviously, you were going to try and control every situation.
Yeah.
Because that was on you. So that was huge in therapy.
I want to insert the video of, oh gosh, it's right there. There's a DJ. It's like, that's called motherfucking bars. Everything you just said is just bars. Like, what a brilliant way to reimagine and restructure our societal attachments to the word control freak.
Right.
Yeah. Truly.
Because that's also a very 2007, 2008
Totally.
way of describing someone who has a type A personality.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way to punch down. Like, it's not control freak. It's like, when things were out of my control, I got very anxious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those patterns persisted.
That's just how
not
the brain rewired itself to
exactly
protect itself.
Yep. Exactly.
That's called motherfucking bars.
You're going to have to track down that video.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, it is protection, right? Like, I think
Totally.
it's just that, like, okay,
That's how you cope.
it's just me, it's like, I got myself, and how am I going to cope and protect myself and, all those things. And then, oh my gosh, something out of my control just happened, and how am I going to react to it? And I'm trying every day, right? Like that, like all of us, like, am I perfect? By no means. Do I strive for a level of perfectionism? Absolutely. Am I understanding that you are that the very cliche saying, you are perfectly imperfect, but that is true. And I will learn to love those imperfections more and more. And I think the place I'm at today, kind of bringing this back full circle to why I even wanted to run the marathon, the place I'm at today is I love myself so much more today than I have ever loved myself in my entire life. And that is all that matters. Like that's huge for me.
Mic drop. And it was DJ Funk Master Flex. I apologize to everyone who is listening to this podcast right now because they're in their cars screaming, "It's Funk Flex, you idiot!"
Damn it, Brad.
We'll edit that out. We'll just edit that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're just happy you shared that with us. I think, like you said, bringing this full circle, mental health is such a beautiful spectrum, and there has been a very negative stigma or whatever you want to put it on the words mental health, because people immediately will think of, like you said, depression or, crippling anxiety. But for us, we love talking about how mental health can, you might just need a tune-up. You might just need, you don't have to be in the deepest, darkest place in order to have these conversations. So, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for, having an environment and a space like this to be able to be vulnerable and feel comfortable to talk about those things. Because I think there's also freedom in having, a community that understands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, I'm going to say this right now. And, this group of people, they're going to understand what I mean. And if they don't understand what I mean, they're going to ask questions, but they're going to ask it in the right way.
That's right.
I feel supported and I don't feel like an other, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm alone and, or like I'm just striving for some attention because I'm throwing out certain terms that seem popular right now. And look, I think we do see that more and more now too. I think we see certain terms being thrown out there and you're like, I don't know if that could be detrimental, right? If we're just casually throwing out some terms here and there.
Right, like your favorite golf influencer pushing CBD oil.
Yeah.
Like, do you actually use CBD oil or you just got some sponsorship?
Did they just tell you to say that you felt anxious and then you took the CBD oil?
Right.
100%. 100%.
Is that real?
100%.
We could talk offline about who we're talking about.
I have a feeling I know it.
Uh-huh.
But
but also like what a great preview of what our Discord is all about. Like, we wanted to create this safe environment to just share and be open and not fear the birthday party syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, we have your back. Like, we get you. And if we don't get you, we lead with empathy.
Exactly.
And curiosity.
Right. And ask questions, right? And that's all it is too. I mean, ask questions and just be genuinely interested. And I think that's all it takes, right? And so, no, we're not going to understand every little detail of mental health, but we can be open to it and we can educate ourselves and, we can support each other. And support can look like so many different things, but sometimes all it is just like, I hear you and I see you. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
So that's huge for me in my process of this mental health journey.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like saying that you understand mental health, like presupposes that you understand the mind, and like, I don't know shit about what's going on up there, nor do we collectively. So let's just let's set that straight.
None of us are mental health professionals.
Or experts.
That's our disclaimer.
No. And if we were, we would be
doing shit,
we'd be making a lot more money. We'd be like writing
CBD oil. Yeah, maybe you should do that. Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, go ahead, try it.
Legalize
it helps.
Right, the next Send Golf.
Just CBD.
Just legalize it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Charlotte, where are some of your happy places outside of golf?
Okay, so this one is easy for me. it's the ocean, right? It's being at the beach. I love being by the beach. I could just sit there watching the waves all day long. And it's also being with my dogs and my mom and my sister. And that's why I came back home. That's, I needed my happy place. So the pandemic, the start of the pandemic was so hard for so many of us, and it still is hard. But I was really grateful that it brought me back to California. And, I'm close. I have 2 senior dogs. So, who knows their days. It's like breaks your heart to think about, because we have a 17-year-old dog. But to be able to be around her, she's 17. So I grew up with this dog, right? And talk about therapy dogs. She is a therapy dog through and through. She really will feel your emotional state. So it's kind of crazy because we were so disconnected for so long. And I think only dog people understand this, but for so long, I wasn't at home, right? I left after high school, and I would only come home for the holidays and, weekend trip here and there. But even to this day, if I'm super anxious, she will feel that. She will feel that anxiety, and she will know, and she picks up on it, even if I don't realize that I'm super anxious, because sometimes you don't realize it. You're just like going through the motions, and you're not really like taking a moment to process. But then this dog will just be there, and she, she's looking like she's out of her mind anxious, and so she'll pick up on it. But being by the beach with the dogs there is great. I'm like that person. I love to go out to dinner, you guys. Like, I think eating out is such an experience. Like, I love to have a good glass of wine and food, and so that to me is also a happy place. Like, maybe I'm just a foodie and I just love it, but a good meal can be such a happy place for me too. So the beach and a meal and dogs and mom and sister, like, that's it. That's a few answers.
A segue.
I love that. I was gonna say, during the pandemic, that was like, this is a place of privilege, but not being able to go out for dinner or out for lunch,
right? That
was tough. It was tough to not be able to break bread with friends and family and not have to wash your own dishes. Like, so no, I feel it.
Right. And look, it is, and totally, I know that, like, that's such a place of privilege, right? To be like, I love to eat out, and like, I love to drink wine and like eat really delicious meals, but I do. And, you have to understand too, I was living in central Connecticut. So I was going out with friends, maybe on the weekends, but like, it was not, I was cooking for myself all the time. So then I come back to LA, where we have some of the best food options all around me. And I really take joy in, like you said, breaking bread. I think that's huge for me. So gosh, I just sound like a real privileged woman over here who likes the ocean and wine.
Connor, I think I know you were going with this one. So to transition, what would be your master's dinner or your last meal on earth? What's your favorite? What are your favorite things to eat?
You guys, this is the hardest question. And I know you guys know this is the hardest question.
It's really tough.
It's so tough because especially it's tough when you're not picky and you like a lot of things. But let's start here. I'm definitely having champagne. Okay. I'm definitely having champagne. And again, we'll just continue with the white woman privilege in that moment, but I'm definitely having champagne, and I'm definitely having truffle fries. Okay. That is an experience for me. Those two things together I'm obsessed. Okay.
I defy you to find someone who doesn't enjoy those two things. I don't give a damn.
I bet you that person's out there, but they are not invited to my master's dinner, I guess. Yeah.
That's it. That's why it's your dinner.
They're not invited. So definitely that. And then look, I love a cacio e pepe. I love a good creamy pasta. Cause look, I'm not eating that all the time. Like, my stomach is not going to be happy if I'm eating that all the time, but a really good homemade pasta, maybe some scallops. Like, I could be into that. I don't eat red meat often, but when I do, it's top notch. So we'll probably have, some great red meat there. But I think let's just first and foremost say it's definitely going to include some champagne and truffle fries. That's all I know. That is all I know.
Wow. I mean, you could serve me 5 courses of champagne and truffle fries, and I would not be disappointed.
You would not be. No. You'd be really happy with it. You would be really, really content with that situation.
Very full, too.
You would be so full.
Right.
Yeah. The next morning, I don't know how you're going to feel the next morning, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And
Yeah.
champagne is, it's an upper, so you are going to feel a little good, right? Like
Yes.
you're going to
Right.
feel a little good, and
Totally.
it's a celebratory meal.
For sure. What are some of your favorite golf smells?
Okay, so this one I think brings me right back to early stages of golf and smelling a cigar on the golf course. I love that smell. And I don't smoke cigars. I've never smoked a cigar, but there's something about smelling a cigar on the golf course that just, I think, brings me back to my early days of golf. I really love that smell on the golf course, which is probably so gross to some people, but that sweet kind of rich smell, I'm kind of into it.
I wouldn't smoke a cigar because it might ruin that smell for you moving forward.
And you know what?
Yeah.
And I have no plans. I have no plans of smoking one ever. But there is something about that smell. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's just even like a black and mild smell, right? It's probably not even that good. Because if it was at Westlake Golf Course, right? It was probably a black and mild at Westlake Golf Course.
That's what we were smoking in high
backwoods,
school on the course.
Yeah, backwoods.
But there's something about that I love.
Strawberry.
And yeah, it's so good. Because it's not like, it's not a hot dog smell, nothing like that. And yeah, grass is good. Don't just cut that part of the podcast, me saying grass is good, but it's good.
Legalize it.
Yeah, it's good. But it doesn't, there's just the defining smell for me in golf is a cigar on the golf course. I like it.
That's really interesting. I like that. We haven't gotten that one.
I mean,
we
when was
love
the
this
last time
question,
you
yeah.
played? When was the last time you played a round of golf? This is for all y'all. Where you didn't smell a cigar.
Well, to be fair, I did play today, but it was like full on survival golf. We were the only ones on the golf course in the middle of a bomb cyclone. So
you were in the eye of a storm, bro.
No one
Like,
was smoking a cigar, but
it would have blown
that,
out instantly.
Yeah. But beyond that, it would have been like a flare, like a survival flare, the cigar. But beyond that, no, I think very, very regularly I smell a cigar when I'm playing golf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like it too.
I know there's something about it, right?
Charlotte,
it brings you back. Brings you back.
What is your walk-up music? You walking up to the first tee at the ESPNW Summit, all eyes on you.
This is another hard.
Lisa Leslie's like, girl, teach me how to golf.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, I got you, Lisa Leslie. Hold on. Cue music.
And here's the thing. You said Lisa Leslie, like my idol, growing up. I wrote every single book report on a Lisa Leslie book. There's remember as a kid, there's all those books, and that was it. Lisa Leslie is it for me. So thank you for bringing my idol into this, Lisa Leslie. Nice. And this question is also very difficult for me because I love indie music, you guys. And so all the songs that I listen to on the regular are definitely not hype up songs. We're not, getting hyped to them.
Drew's and mine were both depressing as hell.
I was going to say, that's the other thing. I had an ex-boyfriend once tell me, maybe you're depressed because your music is so depressing.
Oh, no.
And I'm like,
off.
That's why he's next.
Boo.
I'm like, I don't think that's
next.
it.
Get him out.
That's why he's next.
But here's the thing. So this is an inside secret into my life at home as a grown adult living with her mom and her dogs. But we always try to have a walk up song when we bring the dogs upstairs. It's always a thing. We have the treats and we always call it a walk up song, right?
Aww.
And the song of choice is always Twerkulator lately. So we are big city girls. Twerkulator. That's it. So
stop playing.
So I'm thinking Twerkulator is probably the song, right? Because that is literally my walk up song lately. And so
wow.
Yeah, maybe a little city girls. That's it. And I think Lisa Leslie would be delightfully impressed with that.
Oh, she'd be here for that.
For that.
But then it's like, I'm not twerking, but yeah.
You don't have to be.
It kind of makes you want to.
It makes you want
or
to.
Make you feel like you could.
Yeah, and that is a hype up song. That's a good one. So I think
empowers
that's
you to twerk should you want to.
Should you want to?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what City Girls is all about. City Girls is they're hype up. That's it. So Twerkulator it is. But then beyond that, we're really listening to a lot of Girl in Red and Soccer Mommy and Rye and things like that. So I don't necessarily aren't my hype up songs, but a lot of James Blake. We're listening to
James Blake does not make me want to twerk. I'm gonna tell you that. But
no,
that makes one of us.
He makes me want to write a memoir or something. Yeah, Connor.
Damn.
On the way out, Charlotte, tell us the time on the golf course you have laughed the hardest.
So I think, and you can view this on my Instagram, you guys, but my sister and I, first of all, I'll preface this by saying I love TikTok. I think TikTok is great. I love it. That might be an unhealthy love. And I understand that. I know that it is unhealthy at times, but
we still in a pandemic, girl.
I find joy in watching TikToks at night, right? And I saw this TikTok. Who needs TV, right? Who needs TV? I'm still reading, so I'm still keeping my mind fresh and all those good things. But sometimes you just need a little TikTok. And I saw someone post a TikTok, and it was High School Musical on the golf course, Zac Efron, and it was the song "Bet on It." And so my sister was in town this summer. We had Los Robles Golf Course kind of to ourselves a little bit. And I said, we're going to do this. And I am not a dancer by any means. Okay. I've never had good rhythm and I can't seem to hold a beat to save my life. My sister can. She's always been a dancer. And, it's a good sister moment. She's a younger sister. And so I think I haven't laughed that hard because the reality is it was just like a sister fight on a green trying to film this TikTok and her yelling at me like, keep the beat, what's going on? And she's like, come on, and even before that, us practicing at home, like we had to practice at home. And then we got there and I still wasn't getting it and I wasn't nailing it. And she's just like, oh my gosh, it's not that hard. And it was High School Musical. That was our era. It was High School Musical. And so, yeah, it was hilarious. And, the final product, it turned out, it's funny. People are probably like, you are a loser, but I don't care. It was hilarious. The backstory was good. Dancing on a green, good times. And for all those people saying, don't disrespect a green like that, take it easy. But
step off.
Yeah, take it easy. We're filming a Zac Efron TikTok, okay?
Yeah, it's clearly not that serious.
Yeah, this is for the High School Musical stands out there. So I think, although that was not necessarily golfing, but I did play around that day, and at the end we had some time, and I thought, you know what, my sister's here. Let's sneak in this little High School Musical TikTok and see how it turns out. And that is how I became a golf babe. That's
There it is.
Mic drop.
And that is it.
Well, we need to take some lessons on that. That's Brad, Connor, and my goal. We want to be IG babes at some point. Yeah. We long for the male gaze, so we're working on that.
Look, I would be remiss if I didn't say I long for it too sometimes. Okay, so I do as well, but I would like to imagine that there's more depth to me, and so I do struggle with that term, golf babes, and I struggle with the platform that some of the women have if they are not using it to empower other women. I think that's where it falls, So for me, I'm all about lifting other women up. And if you're not doing that, if you are making women feel worse about themselves or you're excluding, groups of women who maybe don't look great in a crop top on a golf course, which I would never play golf in a crop top. I will just throw that out there. That would never be comfortable for me, but to each their own, right? Like I'm not going to say you can't play golf because of that. But, I think that's just what that little community, I think a lot of women right now in the golf community are kind of struggling with that. So
100%.
Yeah. And I will one day, maybe I'll write a book about it or something. Maybe that's my calling.
Oh, we're here for it.
Cosign.
Yeah.
We'll write the foreword.
Perfect. Please do. And just start off like, we want the male gaze.
Yeah. Wait, it's what we. Yeah.
Drew's like, no, we are not going to do that.
he was going to double down. It was like,
no.
Wow.
Yo, Drew, you almost broke me earlier, bro. Like, you are so fucking funny. You were like, he was like, yeah, not washing my own dishes. I miss not doing that. I'm gonna tell you, it is a point of contention in this household. So it was just you got right to the core of me with that one.
Dig the knife in. Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow.
Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on to Group Golf Therapy. I know we've been trying to link up for a long time, and this was a really, really fun and meaningful and deep and challenging chat, as they always are. But this was really great. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for having me. This was super enjoyable. And like you said, it was deep and it was challenging, but it was also fun and lighthearted. And you guys are stuck with me now. You're my friends. So,
yeah, of course.
I mean, Brad, you were my friend. Don't worry. We played golf. We had that beautiful moment. What if Brad turns around from all of this and he's like, that was not my favorite time.
That day was kind of
fun. It sucked, yeah. I hated that round.
Yeah. He's like,
she's not that good at golf.
He's like, she wore a crop top, okay?
Yeah, she wore a crop top and shot 125.
Yeah. No, but seriously.
You won't be alone on that day when you decide to wear one on the golf course.
And like I said, to each their own, right? To each their own, whatever you're comfortable in. But I think it's all about let's just continue to lift each other up. And I think I'll just end on the note that I think women are the greatest offenders in putting down other women at times. And so, especially in the golf world, I think men can be cruel, but so can women. So I think if we just continue to lift each other up and inspire others to, you can look cute, but you can also empower other women to join the sport. I think there's strength in that. But you guys know you've had some amazing women on this podcast, and you're doing the good work there. So
we have had some amazing women on this golf course. You are now the latest.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for having me.
Yeah. Best of luck on November 7th. Big day for you. We'll be rooting you on, and can't wait to see how it goes.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for rooting me on. Check in on me after that. And then check in on me 2 weeks after that, and we'll play golf. And especially if everyone's in LA. Yeah. But Brad, you and I definitely we'll get out there again.
We'll send you one of those Group Golf Therapy branded tinfoil blankets that you can wrap yourself in after.
Hey, if you want to, you can totally do that.
For the blanket.
I don't have any
recovery blanket.
I don't have any sponsors for that day yet, so you guys get on it.
We'll just do stickers. Yeah.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah, you can plastic. Throw the stickers all over New York City. I love it.
Yeah, I don't have a CBD company attached to me yet, so if you guys know anyone.
Nor do we.
All right, you guys. Well, thanks for everything. This was great.